Okay, so I would like to welcome Amira and Jami from East Wales, and the Right to Education project, which is a new project which is just launched. I feel it's a really, really important project as a parent with a child who is mixed heritage, who suffered racism in school from a teacher, and also for all the other people out there who have been wrongly excluded. So, welcome. Let's talk all about this project because I just think it is so incredibly needed.
Yes, absolutely, Jess. Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys have just launched. I came to the launch at Grangetown Pavilion and it was an incredible atmosphere. There was a lot of people there because this project is obviously there's a massive need to help parents and children who go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it was born out of a case that actually ended up going to the High Court. I will play a clip from Michael's interview later in the programme, explaining about the legalities of it. But why is this project important, first of all?
So I think as you said, Jess, because of that specific case, but because a lot of cases that East dealt with throughout the years, in terms of racism in school, bullying in school that is not tackled by the school in the appropriate manner, which led then to things and young people taking things into their own hand, and then up then to being excluded. But yeah, we've looked around and there was no specific project that will tackle this specific issue, which is exclusion or young people or children at a higher risk of being excluded from an ethnic minority backgrounds.
Yeah,
And yeah,
well, I was just going to say the project is an advocacy service, so people can get in touch with you if they
yes,
are in this situation.
yes, is an advocacy and support service targeted at ethnic minority young people and delivered by East Wales. It's an all Wales project, and we can support young people who are experiencing disputes with their schools. And that specifically, we're looking into school exclusion, like I just explained. And we aiming to support them to have improved access to the right to education.
Yeah, because when I was talking to Michael, he was mentioning how hard it is once you have an exclusion on your school record for young people.
Mm.
Could you just go through some of the impacts that that would have for a young person?
Of course, apart from having it there on their record when they transfer to another school, it's the mental impact as well. Psychological
Yeah.
impact is the
Mhm.
trauma of being treated unfairly, the impact on not just the pupil itself, but the family as well. So mom or dad having to take some time off work to, sit with their child. It's a life changing decision, not just for for the child or the young person, but for the family as well.
Yeah, it would be quite scary as well, I think, faced with all of the procedures that are very official. I
Mm.
just feel like as a parent, you're not always clear about which way to proceed when you come across these issues.
Absolutely, yeah, it's complex.
It's
It's a
really
complex
complex.
process. And if you think of people who have language barrier, it's even more difficult and more complex. But
Yeah,
that's what we
absolutely.
are providing with this project. We provide them families with information and support around, this complex process, disciplinary exclusion and appeal process, as well as advocating on their behalf and representing them in governors meetings or appeal panels. Um, and as you mentioned, we have Michael on this project as well with us. So the legal side in terms of the cases that we have in this project, but also the help from the Children's Legal Centre as well.
Tell us a bit more about the Children's Legal Centre.
Yeah, so with the Children's Legal Centre, they're based in Swansea University, but they work across Wales, and they're all about kind of making sure that children know their rights and make sure that family know their rights as well. So I think like for a lot of us, like, people say, oh, you've got human rights, you've got children's rights, but it's like, is it just written on a paper or is it something that we can actually kind of use like in a real life situation?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's hard. It's a bit of like you say, especially if you've got like any language barriers, or English isn't your first language, or you're just not used to like the UK systems, because it is like a bit of a minefield, isn't it? Because I think everybody expects to have these rights, but we're in this situation now where a lot of the rights, one, they're not upheld, or two, they've been taken away right now. So I think it's really important, the work that you're doing. One of the things that I thought when I came to your launch was I was wondering about training, and how you can prepare like parents, or how you can kind of like inform parents like what their actual rights are, or the children what their rights are. So that's a really important aspect of the project, isn't it?
Yeah, I think like that's really obviously, as I was saying, like to translate what's written kind of in legislation, which is something that most of us don't really kind of know about unless we see it online, I don't know, on the news. But yeah, like it's really important for us to not just kind of do this in isolation of like, oh, we've got this service, but then not getting it out there to the community. Like we really want to make sure that one, people know about the project and they know about the casework support that Amira can provide to people in the community. But then secondly, just to know, like we're here for advice as well. So like even if they've heard of cases that have happened, like with friends and families, or if they feel like there's a communication breakdown with the school, or as you said, Jess, if they feel like, oh, this is supposed to be a child's right or a human right, but we feel like it's not being respected in that school, like we're here to basically pick brains as well. So like if you do want to find out a bit more information. And yeah, I just wanted to mention as well, like a big part of the project is recruiting volunteers as well. So we're hoping to have young people aged 18 to 25 and 25 plus who are parents within communities in Wales, basically to help share the message of the project, the service, make sure that people feel like they can reach out to us as well, because, we know a lot of the time maybe there's an issue, but you feel too embarrassed to say, or you feel like I got to keep my head down, like don't, cause trouble with the school. So we're hoping these people will be a bit more kind of easy to talk to, in terms of finding out about the project as well and the
Yeah,
service.
that's definitely important, because like we said earlier, is a mental health side to it, and there's a fear side to it, especially as a parent. I used to kind of like dread that, personally, trying to kind of navigate that your way through the systems, and you worry, about what's going to happen and what the impacts are if you try to challenge the school or the system, or their ruling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It
No,
makes
that's
you
right.
feel scared,
Yeah, not just parents. I feel like even young people when they start high school, they start to become very secretive. They don't share much information about what goes in their life, and that is part of the problem. That they might be an ongoing bullying, racism. They're not going to go to their parents seeking help like they were in primary school. Mom, dad, somebody said that. So the school plays a very, big role here in acting on specific, cases like bullying, picking all of that up and unpacking it and dealing with it in a very appropriate way in order for this not to escalate. So even the young people, not just their families, really dread the whole situation and the whole process of going and seeking advice from someone, or asking for help.
Yeah, so you're hoping to get some volunteers that are both children, young people, and parents. So we can kind of like spread the word in the community about where they can get help. So how do they get in touch with how do our listeners get in touch with the project? Do they go to the Eyst website, or do they phone the helpline, or?
I think, yeah, probably the best way of getting in touch, unless they got a paper and pen right now, would you
Well,
never
don't
know.
worry. I'll give out. I've got a helpline. I had the helpline on, so yeah, I can give out those details of the website and the helpline.
Yeah, like if any of the listeners have any kind of burning stories or gripes with the school in terms of like racist bullying, as Amira's already mentioned, or if there's been problems, with discipline in schools, with their children, you are free to pop along to the forum that Eyst is having as well on the 7th of June. So I think maybe Jess will have the details for that. But basically it's a free space where you can, share your concerns, but also listen to some speakers as well, like the Children's Commissioner for Wales.
Oh, fantastic. So that's an online event, is it? Online forum?
Yeah, so that one's online. But I gotta say, I quite like online ones as like if you feel like giving an opinion, because sometimes it's like, if you feel shy on the day, you kind of can just sit back, keep your camera off, and stay on mute. But at the same time, it's like if someone else is sharing something similar to what like your child's gone through, or someone that you've heard, it's like you have that opportunity then where you can just like pop it in the chat or share your concerns.
Unity, in our community radio show, we would welcome anyone who wants to come on and talk publicly as well. They are welcome to do that, because I think that these stories of real life experiences that people have had in our communities are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people think that they've heard the stories, but from my work with the community, we continue to hear these stories day in and day out. And we need to continue to hear and capture all these lived experiences in order for us to influence the change that we want to see in the community. So I would encourage everyone who's listening to us to share with us any experience that they've been through or they are going through at the moment. We're here to help and to support.